Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of Fine, folks, and I gotta say, an appreciation for the format scheduling that we've had this year. There are less lulls in games than any year past, especially when you throw in this little transition that now the EMEA Masters gave us, and it's carried us right through to the start of the LPL.
Oh man, it's never been a year like we have had so far with the amount of action that we've already had throughout the year, and now keeping in mind the gaps, the periods of transition between the stages, splits, everything that we've had before are even more action packed and filled than they ever were before. It's a good time to be a League of Legends fan. It's a good time to check in with those EMEA Masters, as you mentioned, and see how the boys from Los Ratones are continuing the dream journey.
And I think a lot of that, lull being carried over is there's more hype for this EMEA Masters than ever because of the Los Ratones, who, yes, Cadril alone was pulling 300k viewers in these finals. Again, obviously smashing records for tier 2 regions, but you don't even need to throw the tier 2 region tag on the viewership numbers that this finals was pulling. And I know even with, half a million people tuning into this one, and it's actually probably way more than that when Cadril has 300k himself, and this is without a squad like K-Corp also being in the finals. If they were here, we'd be smashing over 1 mil.
It's one of these ones where, again, you have to remind yourself, you have to stay grounded and realize, okay, what does my, local gym look like when it's fully packed? What does my local stadium event type of place look like when it's fully packed? Now multiply that by 5, 10, 20 times to get to where you are just on Cadril stream with 300,000 and almost 500,000 for this finals of the EMEA Masters. Los Ratones, LEC, you gotta be picking up that phone call to get into these guys in some way or another, because you have to capitalize on this movement, this traction, and this momentum that Los Ratones Cadril has created in the League of Legends scene.
And there was no finer display of plot armor than this first game that they had absolutely no business winning. I think they were at one point down 6k, eventually dragged the game out, hold the door in the base, and then it ends with Velia grabbing an Elder Dragon flip steal, and that man, deservedly so, picks up MVP for this series. That is the first number you're calling if your LEC squads is what you got out of Velia, and Cadril kind of highlighted later in the series just having the insight to stop a Baron rush from the LFL second seed, and it was blind on vision, and it's Velia, the rookie, the youngest member of this team, making a call that we got to check Baron. I think they're on Baron. They are, and that probably saves them another game.
There's something to be said for how he's developing, the type of experience that this uniquely provides compared to any other, rookie young player that we've ever had in, in any type of thing. You've had, of course, in these professional leagues and scenarios where you've had a young player with a veteran type of roster. Never quite the mix. That is exactly how things are with Los Ratones and what they're going through, and the pressure and expectations with them as well. I don't think it's quite been matched to this unique concoction, this potion that we're going to have for Velia, and where that will set him up in the rest of his career as we move forward, as you move into more organized, more structured leagues. I think that this is a player that can explode, can be a big-time hit, and we talked about that at the very beginning of this Los Ratones experiment, that that LEC teams, they're going to see what they like, and they better pick up that call to make sure that they're getting in early on this negotiation.
And listen, obviously this whole project as a whole, even if they didn't win this finals, absolutely smashed expectations, would be considered a success. But now it changes the landscape of other regions, and we've talked about this. I think it was Yamato Cannon talking about, obviously this is a showcase that you can broadcast your scrims, make them all public, and the on-Rift product doesn't really suffer. Your strategies aren't exposed. I know Tier 2 is a different competitive level, but the EMEA Masters over the last couple of years have been the gold standard of that Tier 2 league across any region. So we shouldn't be putting down that, it just happened in this tier, so this wouldn't apply to other major regions. They're really changing the playbook on what it is to, build a brand as a team.
They lost one game in the NLC. And if you want to go, okay, that's the NLC. Well, they lost only one series at the EMEA Masters. And there's no other level than the LEC. That's the only upgrade, the only up tier in this type of situation. They have smashed, check mark, everything, slam, dunk, home run, book it, all the way through every single checkpoint that you could have for this team other than just that LEC level of competition. Really think that this is a phenomenal thing, and one of these ones where, again, in this day and age where everyone's going to say that you're just glazing or praising this type of thing, whatever, Los Ratones and what has happened here definitely deserves all the attention and all the roses that it's going to get at this point. And it's only just getting started, guys, with what we've had here from this group.
Yeah, like the split 2 for NLC is April 2nd. You basically got a week and a half turnaround for this squad. Enjoy your vacation, boys, where you're not actually streaming scrims or anything, because there's still this 3 split format. Even here, you're going to get 3 EU Masters events with the potential, maybe you get a trifecta. We've absolutely never seen, I think we've seen 2 out of 3 titles going to the same team, but obviously the pursuit for perfection for 3 splits in a row at the EMEA Masters is something the squad's going to look for. That's, again, if someone doesn't get pulled away to go up to the LEC.
Which now it's becoming this, flip-flop, I don't know how to feel about it type of thing, riding the fence. Because, yes, on the one hand, I'd love to see the history be made. 3 straight titles in the EMA, never been done in that type of fashion that would happen here if Los Ratones is able to pull off the miraculous run through again and again and again. But when you talk to me on the other side and say you can think about these guys, Velia, even Nemesis, going back to the LEC, these type of opportunities that should be there for these players from what they have shown, the opportunities, the excitement, the brand that they are going to bring with them, whether it's the whole Los Ratones group or only one of these individuals, you have to be excited about that opportunity if you're talking about someone watching the LEC.
And again, we've seen the impact in other leagues with LTA teams showing scrims, the near airport squad even existing. The impact for this squad goes well beyond the tier 2 region. And now talk about going forward. You don't think there's going to be sponsors calling up Cadril to get a little tag on their jersey or anything else? And just the growth from building this team from nothing. Didn't exist a couple of months ago to the shockwave and force that it is now is a testament to Cadril and these 5 players.
It's one of these situations you have to recognize that it's not only a trend. This is something that is breaking ground within the League of Legends scene and is going to be a part of that, scenario, of that structure that we have within the scene. And you better be on board with it, because that is the way things are going, and you want to be in early on something like this one with Los Ratones. So yeah, if I'm any of these gaming companies, whatever, Logitech, you got me an energy drink, you got a protein supplement, whatever, you better be calling in to these Los Ratones and get yourself a spot.
Gamer Goo patch coming to you soon on the new Los Ratones jersey to check out for the next split. It's early in the LPL, but we're getting big name matchups and lots of games, even though it's best of 1. This is the placement phase of Split 2, where teams are going to be broken up to kind of winners and losers, but it's a best of round robin 2 times over, where you're going to go back and play in these different groups, 4 teams in each one. We had BLG kicking. We already had 3 days of games in the LPL. BLG starting off 3-0 in Group A, and we had both Knight on Akali and Bin on some coveted picks like the Rumble, both looking like they're in mid-season form already.
This is, I'm willing to call the beginning of the LPL split here, kind of like going to Costco when you're looking to eat something for lunch, but you're not going to go to the cafeteria or anything. You're just eating the free samples. It's only the little bites, and you know, they're free, so you can't really complain about it type of situation. That's these best of ones in the LPL. You can just bite size, you know, one after the other, keep popping them back, and then
you get the mini Powerade. You're like, oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
Now I'm full. Now I'm feeling it after all these matches. That's the way it is. But we've seen some good action here in them as well, even despite being best of one. And I think one of the interesting points that I want to talk about coming out of it is the awakened slumbering dragon of Invictus Gaming coming to life and putting some results on the board. You already said the BLG is out there doing the same, and always good to track in with that one and see who our, you know, measuring stick is at the very top level of the LPL. But Invictus Gaming, rookie performing and showing out, you like to see that if you're watching the LPL.
I mean, BLG, we're expecting to smash this group, probably go 6-0. Feel like they have a relatively easy group, and they should be title favorites still, even though they lost the top esports last split. IG had the more disappointing split one because we hyped up this super team, and they never really looked that good. These were maybe the best 3 games that rookies had all year.
It felt like when you're boiling, you know, water for spaghetti and you keep checking, oh, it's getting close. I'm starting to see the bubbles. They're starting to get ready. When's it how's it not boiling yet? That was split one for this IG team. You got the heat. You got started to get warm. Never hit the boiling point for the pasta to go in. Now we're cooking. Now we got the dish ready to roll and going on through. When you got rookie performing the way that he is, when Gala is stepping up and getting the damage out there, and of course the Shy is just doing what the Shy does on the top side, so no need to really spend too much time on it. Happy to see IG like this. This is one of those things that can really pick up the excitement level within the LPL, is getting a squad like this to contend at that top end.
And the Shy was a couple pixels away on both Renekton and Ambessa on having a nasty little classic the Shy outplay. Didn't end up getting it, but especially in that matchup against JDG. And obviously this is probably the most contested top of the table matchup that we have out of any of the 4 groups. And JDG falls behind, and IG ends up kind of getting a convincing win against them, but they do bounce back in dramatic fashion against LGD, Scout and Ari and Jun on the Vi. How about a 6K gold lead in the jungle? That doesn't happen too often.
It doesn't happen too often, and not a very fun experience to be on the other hand of, I'll tell you, from unfortunately too much experience in that regard. When you're talking about a squad like JDG, the pieces that are there, the players are so talented that they're able to get these type of results. I think the problem for a lot of us right now is identifying, well, CD Max is certainly has his own brand of drafting, and within Fearless Draft, that can cause some problems. And of course, best of ones right now, not necessarily an issue, but we're still having some questionable drafts coming through from JDG, even in best of one. So that's my little remark on them, is noticing that I don't really, not fully on board with the drafts that are coming through from this JDG team, but again, checking with the players, the form that they are in, more than capable of still being one of these contenders, one of these elite teams in the LPL.
And again, even despite the loss to IG, Pays still looks like one of the most reliable late game damage threats to have in the entire LPL, which is a carryover of what we got out of him in that first split in LPL action. The most recent matchups, you had anyone's Legend, fresh off of their grand finals loss to top eSports, and they had a bit of a roller coaster day because you had the absolute stomp of the weekend. I'm talking AL had 33 kills in 23 minutes against Thunder Talk. That is a record-setting pace.
That is a blitz-breaking pace over there from the boys at Anyone's Legend, and this is one of those ones where you really hoped that it would be able to be a bounce back like this into this split and carry over the momentum, some of that traction that you had from the previous one, and build yourself up now that the expectation is there to be one of these top teams that will contend and everything else. How do you sharpen? How do you polish yourself into that option that is right beside BLG, clear cut? Taking wins like this, starting out the split in this type of fashion is one of the best ways to do so if you're Anyone's Legend.
And The roller coaster was they looked unbelievably dominant against Thundertalk, and then they match up against a winless O2 RNG squad that's incredibly back and forth, and it's actually the rookie Chachi, rookie of the split, mind you, from Split 1 on RNG, absolutely popping off on the Kaisa. There's just something different about Chinese AD carries playing the Kaisa. My man gets an Otacon and a Quadra kill in essentially a 1v3 to close things out as a rookie to keep the hopes alive for RNG and really shake up this group.
As everything I said about anyone's Legend, I was hoping we weren't going to talk about this because that pretty much means you got to add that
up and down. Yeah.
I was prepared. I was going to say it and I didn't until we got to this. You had to slap an asterisk on that because everything about that was true until you factor in the RNG matchup. And yes, I don't think you need to factor it in maybe as much as any other type of match or thing like that where it has a significant weight on where you're feeling about the momentum or movement of this team. Absolutely was a tripped up hurdle, a missed one from anyone's Legend in that regard. But as you said, full props over to RNG and the way that they were able to play in this one. And man, oh man, yes, does Chinese Kaisa always able to find a way to get the maximum amount of damage out onto you and just be elusive enough to escape away out of any engagement.
And you can talk about RNG being a bit of a cursed organization these days and something you want to completely steer clear of. But the level that this rookie Chachi's in and Milky Way on this roster, I feel like people are still low-key rooting for this team because the expectations were so low. And now sitting at 1-2, and there's no 3-0 squad in this group heading into that second round of round robin. That's pretty wide open. I know these are best of one, so really it's not huge implications even if you finish bottom two.
I'm calling this about page 15 of the Lego handbook for RNG because this is you've got the base structure built, the base building blocks are laid down. You're starting to picture this is what you're looking at the box. This is what I bought. I'm getting there, making progress. That's how you can feel about this with RNG. Now you had Milky Way, so you already knew that. That's the established one. That's the instruction booklet. Now you're picking up a couple of these pieces down onto your little thing and you're assembling it. Are we going to be able to build it before it gets destroyed and taken down and sent to the rest of the toy bin? We'll see with RNG in that regard.
There's a chance they get near the end and then in the middle they say, Tanguan, oh, that piece is actually wrong. We got to take that piece out. Oh, no, that was back on page 7. Oh, man.
I got the booklet upside down. Oh, boy. Yeah, so things can go sideways really quickly and really sideways for RNG. But at the very least, checking in at this point, starting to see some of that project, starting to see some of that building being built, and it starts with those two players.
Last group that hasn't started yet has Top Esports and NIP, so obviously that will be the banger matchup to wrap up this first round robin at the LPL.
Oh, baby, I can't wait to see that one. Top Esports with a lot to prove to not only the international community, but especially back home in the LPL to their own fans and region. As well, you side in with NIP and still some of that hype, some of that excitement from what we saw from them, even with a little bit of that disappointment in playoffs. I'm on board, baby. Give me Dwayne B back out there on Summoner's Rift.
MVP versus Split 1 champions for an absolute marquee matchup. Gotta give credit to the transparency that's going on in the LTA. I'm going to give a lot of that credit to Mr. Mark Z, the commissioner. Everyone calling out the format for Split 1. The viewership numbers weren't there. The hype wasn't there. The drama wasn't there. And they acknowledge it. They say, yeah, Split 1 wasn't great. And now with Full Fearless going for the rest of the year, I think everybody saw these best of ones coming up for Split 2 and were left scratching their head. So they're willing to make changes, and they have. There's still going to be best of ones, but it's only for the first half, the first, I think, 3 weeks of the split before it will get into best of threes. And they also heard the screams for we only got one best of 5 in Split 1. So a lot of the best of threes in the playoffs and different rounds are being extended to best of 5. These are all changes that we should be happy about, even if they're maybe not enough.
Yes, I think that's the good message to get across here in this type of one. And one of the important things that we are seeing from this that I wanted to bring up is it's one thing to be transparent, to show that you are listening and communicating this type of way with the fans. It's another thing to actually put them into action, show that you are willing to make these changes, to act on what you are listening to, because otherwise it becomes one of these situations where you go, we're hearing you, we know that this is a problem, you don't like this, and this, and then you never come through with anything constructive, anything that has been laid out from the community in that type of way. Not the case here. You are seeing that they are listening to that feedback, taking it in, and then internalizing and then responding back on how they are going to change these type of things. And you see that through the shortening of the best of one scheduling and extending out some of these playoff matches into that best of five that we've talked about. Is that going to be enough for the LTA? I don't think so. I think we still need to make a couple more moves and a couple of strides, but at the very least, to see at the very top that they're listening to it and willing to act on this and make those changes before it gets through and becomes, a stale or bad scenario heading into this next split is something I think does deserve that check mark and pat on the back for Mark Z and the crew.
And he also talked a little bit about, obviously, the viewership numbers not being that great. And part of that, of course, is the slow transition into the full rebrand. I feel like people who aren't as tuned in don't even know what the LTA is together, right? You're saying, well, when's the LCS start? When's the LCS go? It is the LCS. It's going to take a little for that brand to sink in for people. He also kind of talked about there being overlapping matches with the LTA South and LTA North, and truthfully, it's probably more the LEC that it's overlapping with in some of these matchups. But these are all things that they're monitoring and will hope to improve in the rest of the year.
That was the part of the statement that was maybe the softest or weakest in my opinion, and what we saw from it and how they explained it. These are things where, yes, you can acknowledge them to be true and factual in that regard. But when you do ask and say, well, could we have done better still? Yes, absolutely. That answer has to be there in these regards, no matter, how unavoidable or anticipated these type of drops were going to be making this transition. Still could have been managed better, I think, is the way to look at it. At the very least, keeping track of them and trying to get in front of it again seems to be one of the things that the LTA at the helm with Mark Z seems to be under control.
The bigger issue viewership-wise will be better storylines. Better on-Rift product is always going to result in more viewers. So we'll see how that changes throughout Split 2. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark with you. Absolute beauties. Thank you so much for hanging out.